Rachel Morrison sat in the leather chair across from Mr. Henderson, the estate attorney, her hands trembling slightly as she held the thick manila folder. The afternoon sun filtered through the Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across the mahogany desk. She had expected this meeting to be routine, maybe a small keepsake from Uncle George, perhaps a few $1,000s at most. What she heard instead made her feel like the floor had dropped out from beneath her. "Miss Morrison, I need you to understand the full scope of what your uncle has left you," Mr. Henderson said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "The estate includes a downtown Denver penthouse, currently valued at $4.2 million, a vacation property in Aspen, worth approximately $2.8 million, 3 commercial rental properties, generating consistent income, and liquid assets, totaling $32 million. Rachel's mouth went dry. She tried to process the numbers, but they seemed absurd. Impossible. "I'm sorry, did you say $32 million? "Yes, ma'am. Your Uncle George was quite successful in his investment ventures. He never married, had no children, and you are listed as his sole beneficiary. Everything passes to you free and clear. After estate taxes, you're looking at approximately $24 million in liquid assets, plus the properties." She sat back, feeling dizzy. Uncle George. They had been close when she was younger, but life had gotten busy. The last time she had seen him was almost 8 years ago at a family reunion. He had seemed happy, healthy, asking about her career in marketing, her marriage to Tyler. She remembered him saying something cryptic. "Make sure you marry someone who loves you for you, Rachel. Not for what you can give them." At the time, she had laughed it off. Now those words echoed in her mind with uncomfortable weight. "I'll need you to sign these documents," Mr. Henderson continued, sliding papers across the desk. "And we'll need to schedule follow-up meetings to discuss asset management. But congratulations, Miss Morrison. Your uncle clearly cared about you very much." Rachel signed where indicated, her hand moving on autopilot. When she finally walked out of the law office into the crisp Colorado afternoon, she felt like she was moving through a dream. $24 million, plus real estate worth millions more. She was wealthy, not comfortable, not well off, but genuinely, life-changingly wealthy. She sat in her Honda Civic in the parking garage, staring at the concrete wall in front of her. Her first instinct was to call Tyler, to share this incredible, surreal news with her husband. They had been married for 4 years, together for 6. He was supposed to be her partner, her best friend, the person she shared everything with. Her finger hovered over his contact, ready to dial, but something stopped her. Rachel lowered the phone, resting her forehead against the steering wheel. The last 6 months had been strange. Tyler had become distant, distracted. He came home later and later, always with explanations about projects at the financial firm where he worked. He was less affectionate, less interested in her day, less present even when they were in the same room. And then there was Jessica. Rachel had met her once, at a company holiday party 4 months ago. Jessica was one of Tyler's colleagues, young, confident, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a laugh that carried across the room. Rachel had noticed the way Tyler's face lit up when Jessica approached them, the way their conversation flowed with easy familiarity. She had pushed down the uncomfortable feeling in her stomach, told herself she was being paranoid, insecure. But 2 weeks ago, Tyler had left his phone on the bathroom counter while he was in the shower. Rachel hadn't planned to look. She wasn't that person, but a notification had lit up the screen. A message from Jessica. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. These late nights are the best part of my week." Rachel's heart had hammered in her chest. She had confronted Tyler when he got out of the shower, trying to keep her voice calm. "Who's Jessica texting you about late nights?" He had barely looked concerned. "She's just a coworker. We've been working on the Henderson account together. You know how demanding that client is." It seemed a little friendly for just work. "Rachel, come on. Are you seriously doing this? You're being paranoid. Jessica and I work together, that's it. I can't believe you're making something out of nothing." The conversation had ended there, but the unease hadn't. She had noticed other things after that. The way Tyler angled his phone away from her when typing. The new cologne he had started wearing. The extra care he took with his appearance on certain mornings, small things that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture she didn't want to see. Now, sitting in her car, with documents worth millions in her bag, Rachel made a decision. She needed to know. She needed to know if Tyler loved her, if their marriage was real, or if she had been fooling herself for months. And now, with this inheritance, she had the perfect opportunity to find out. She wouldn't tell him about the money. Not yet. Instead, she would test him, see what he was really made of when things got difficult. The idea felt manipulative, dishonest even. But the alternative was worse. Spending years with someone who was only with her out of convenience or habit. Discovering the truth when it was too late. When maybe they had children and even more complicated entanglements. Rachel started the car and drove home. Her mind racing through the plan, taking shape. By the time she pulled into their apartment complex in the suburbs of Denver, she knew exactly what she needed to do. What she didn't know yet was just how dramatically the next 24 hours would change everything. Tyler arrived home at 7:30 that evening, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. Rachel was sitting on their gray sectional sofa, a tissue in her hand, her eyes deliberately red from rubbing them. She had spent the last hour preparing, thinking through every detail of the story she was about to tell. "Hey, babe," Tyler said, dropping his briefcase by the door. "What's for dinner?" "I'm starving." Then he looked at her properly and paused. "Whoa, what's wrong? Have you been crying?" Rachel let out a shaky breath, looking down at the tissue in her hands. "Tyler, we need to talk. Something happened today." His expression shifted from concern to wary in an instant. "Okay, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "It's my parents." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Dad called me this afternoon. They're in serious trouble. Financial trouble." Tyler sat down on the edge of the coffee table across from her, his face uncertain. "What kind of trouble?" "Really bad, Tyler. You know how Dad has been talking about investments lately. How he wanted to grow their retirement fund." She watched Tyler nod slowly. He met this investment advisor, someone who came highly recommended. The guy promised incredible returns, showed them projections, testimonials, everything looked legitimate. Dad invested most of their savings. Mom was hesitant, but Dad was so confident. "Please tell me this isn't going where I think it's going." Rachel's voice broke convincingly. "It was a scam, Tyler. A complete fraud. The SEC shut down the operation last week. The advisor disappeared with millions of dollars from dozens of people. My parents lost everything. Their entire retirement fund. Over $300,000 just gone." Tyler's face went pale. "Holy hell! That's terrible. Did they file a police report?" "Yes, but the detective told them they're unlikely to recover anything. The money's offshore. The guy's vanished. It's gone." Rachel wiped at her eyes. "But it's even worse than that. Dad had taken out a second mortgage on their house to invest more. He was so sure it would pay off. Now they can't make the payments. The bank is threatening foreclosure. They're going to lose the house, Tyler. The house I grew up in." Tyler stood up, running his hand through his dark hair, a habit he had when stressed. "This is insane. How did Robert let this happen? He's always been so careful with money." He thought he was being smart, growing their nest egg. "The scam was sophisticated, Tyler. Professional. My parents aren't stupid, they just got taken advantage of by criminals." Rachel's voice had an edge now. "And right now they need help. They need family." Of course, of course." Tyler paced across the living room. "What can we do? Can we help them find a lawyer? Maybe there's some way to fight the foreclosure?" Rachel took a deep breath. "They need more than that. The foreclosure is happening in 6 weeks. They've already talked to lawyers, but there's no stopping it. They're going to lose the house, and they'll have nowhere to go." She paused, watching his face. "They asked if they could stay with us. Just temporarily, until they figure things out. Maybe a few months while Dad looks for work and they save up for a rental." The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel watched emotions flicker across Tyler's face. Surprise, discomfort, calculation. He stopped pacing and turned to look at her. Stay with us. Here? Yes, they don't have anyone else, Tyler. My brother's in Seattle in a one-bedroom apartment. He can't take them. They have no other family in Denver. It would just be temporary. Tyler sat down heavily on the arm of the sofa. Not quite next to her. Rachel, I hear what you're saying, and this is awful. I really feel for Robert and Linda, but our apartment is 2 bedrooms. Where would they even sleep? In the living room? We'd all be on top of each other. We could make it work. They could have the guest room. It wouldn't be comfortable, but it's better than them being homeless. Homeless is kind of dramatic. There are options. We could help them find an affordable apartment, somewhere on the outskirts of the city maybe. I could chip in a little toward the deposit. Rachel felt her chest tighten, not with the fake emotion she had been performing, but with real disappointment. A little toward the deposit. Tyler, they have no money. Zero. The bank accounts are empty. They can't afford first month, last month, and a security deposit. That's like $4,000 or $5,000 minimum, even for a cheap place. Tyler's jaw clenched. So what are you suggesting? That we support them financially, while they live here? For months? I'm suggesting that we help my parents during the worst crisis of their lives. They're in their 60s, Tyler. My dad is going to have to find a job in this economy at his age. It's not going to be easy. They need time, and they need support. Rachel, I get it. I really do. But you're talking about completely upending our lives. We just started having our own financial stability. We're finally saving money. We were talking about buying a house next year. Remember? How are we supposed to do that if we're supporting your parents? The words hit Rachel like a slap. Our financial stability. Our savings. Our house. Not a single mention of her parents as human beings who needed help. Just obstacles to their financial plans. She kept her voice level, testing further. So you're saying no? You won't help them? Tyler stood up again, defensive. I'm not saying no, I'm saying we need to be realistic. Look, I'll help. I've got about $8,000 in my savings account. I can contribute half of that toward getting them into an apartment. But Rachel, I can't have them living here. I work from home 2 days a week. I need space. I need quiet. And honestly, I barely know your parents. We see them like 3 times a year. Having them here every single day for months? He shook his head. That's a lot to ask. Rachel stood up slowly, facing him. You barely know them because you never want to visit. Every time I suggest going to see my parents, you have an excuse. You barely know them because you haven't tried. That's not fair. What's not fair is my parents losing everything and their son-in-law, calculating how little he can get away with helping. The words came out sharper than she intended, but she was no longer entirely acting. Tyler's response was revealing something real, something she had suspected but hadn't wanted to face. Tyler's face hardened. I resent that. I'm trying to be practical here. Someone has to think about our future, our stability. You're being emotional, which I understand. But we can't make major life decisions based on emotion. This isn't emotion, Tyler. This is basic human decency. This is family. They're your family. The words hung in the air between them. Ugly and undeniable. Rachel felt something crack inside her chest. Something that couldn't be easily repaired, but she maintained her composure, needing to see how far this would go. Right, she said quietly. My family, got it. Tyler seemed to realize he had crossed a line. Rachel, that came out wrong. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant that they're not my responsibility in the same way they are yours. But I'll help, I promise. Let me make some calls tomorrow. I'll ask around the office, see if anyone knows of affordable housing options. Maybe I can get HR to recommend some resources for people in financial crisis. There are organizations that help with this kind of thing, right? Organizations. Rachel nodded slowly. You want to refer my parents to organizations rather than let them sleep in our guest room. I'm trying to find solutions here. You're acting like I'm some kind of monster for not wanting to turn our home into a halfway house. Halfway house. Rachel turned away from him, walking toward the bedroom. I need to be alone right now. Rachel, come on. Don't do this. Let's talk about it rationally. I think you've made your position pretty clear, Tyler. She closed the bedroom door behind her. Sitting on the edge of their bed, she heard Tyler pacing in the living room, heard him curse under his breath, heard him eventually settle on the couch and turn on the television. Rachel pulled out her phone and texted her mother. Hi, Mom. Just checking in. How's the trip? Hope you and Dad are having a great time. Her mother responded, a few minutes later. Wonderful, sweetheart. Your father and I went on the most beautiful hike today. The resort is gorgeous. We're thinking of extending another few days. Love you. Rachel smiled sadly at the message. Her parents were fine. They were on a long-planned vacation to Arizona, celebrating their 38th wedding anniversary, blissfully unaware that their daughter had just used them as pawns in a test of her marriage. A test that Tyler was failing spectacularly, but Rachel needed to push further. She needed to see exactly how far Tyler's selfishness went. What happened next would determine whether she stayed quiet about this test, or whether she burned down everything they had built together. Rachel waited until she heard Tyler go into the bathroom, the sound of running water, indicating he was brushing his teeth. She moved quickly but quietly to the living room where his phone sat on the coffee table, face down. Her heart pounded as she picked it up. She knew his passcode. They had always been open about that, at least until recently. The screen unlocked immediately. She went straight to his messages and opened the conversation with Jessica. What she found made her stomach drop. The last message was from 40 minutes ago, right after their argument. Tyler, Jessica, tonight has been a nightmare. Rachel's parents lost all their money in some investment scam, and now they want to move in with us. She's acting like I'm supposed to just say yes without question. Jessica, oh my God, Tyler, that's awful, but moving in? That's huge. You guys barely have space for yourselves. Tyler, exactly, but she's making me feel like a terrible person for being practical. I can't live with her parents, Jess. I'll lose my mind. Jessica, you have every right to want your own space. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you normal. Has she always been this demanding? Tyler, lately, yeah. I don't know what's happened. We used to be on the same page about everything. Now she's constantly on edge, questioning me, making me feel guilty for having boundaries. Jessica, maybe she senses that you're pulling away. Tyler, maybe I'm pulling away because she's not the person I thought she was. We're just different. We want different things. Rachel's hands trembled as she scrolled up, seeing weeks of messages. They weren't explicitly romantic, but they were intimate in a way that felt worse. Late-night conversations about dreams and frustrations. Inside jokes. Jessica sending him photos from her weekend hiking trips. Tyler responding with heart emojis. One exchange from 2 weeks ago made Rachel's breath catch. Jessica, if you could do anything differently in your life, what would it be? Tyler, honestly, I think I got married too young. I love Rachel, but sometimes I wonder if we just settled because it was comfortable. Like, is this really what I want for the rest of my life? Jessica, you're too young to settle, Tyler. You're only 33. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Tyler, yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Rachel heard the bathroom door open. She quickly closed the messages and set the phone back exactly where it had been, face down on the coffee table. She rushed back to the bedroom, her heart hammering, and slid under the covers just as Tyler opened the door. Rachel, you awake? She didn't respond, keeping her breathing even and deep, pretending to sleep. After a moment, Tyler sighed and went back to the living room. She heard the couch creak as he settled in for the night. Apparently, he wasn't even going to try to sleep in the same bed as her. Rachel lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling. The text confirmed what she had suspected. Tyler was already halfway out of their marriage. He was confiding in Jessica, questioning their relationship, pulling away. The crisis with her parents hadn't created these problems, it had simply exposed them. He had shown her exactly who he was when things got difficult. Someone who thought about himself first, who viewed her family as an inconvenience, who was already building an emotional connection with someone else. The inheritance documents were in her bag in the closet. $24 million. Properties worth millions more. Uncle George had given her an incredible gift. But not just the money. He had given her timing, the ability to see the truth before she wasted more years. Before they had children, before their lives became even more entangled. She thought about Tyler's words. They're your family. She thought about his messages to Jessica, the casual way he discussed leaving their marriage like it was a minor inconvenience. And she made a decision. Tomorrow, she would push one step further. Then she would end this. Clean, definitive, final. The next morning Rachel woke early. Tyler was still asleep on the couch, his phone on the coffee table beside him. She made coffee quietly, then got dressed and left the apartment before he woke. She drove to a cafe downtown, ordered a latte, and called Sarah, her best friend from college, who had become a divorce attorney. Rachel, everything okay? It's pretty early. Sarah, I need legal advice. Hypothetically. There was a pause. Hypothetically. Okay, I'm listening. Rachel explained the situation, leaving out the inheritance, but including Tyler's refusal to help her parents in the messages she had found. Sarah listened without interrupting. So, hypothetically, if someone wanted to end their marriage quickly and cleanly, how would that work? In Colorado, you can file for dissolution of marriage. If both parties agree, and there are no kids, no complicated assets, it can be finalized in a few months. You'd need to file the petition, serve him with papers, and assuming he doesn't contest anything, you attend a hearing and the judge grants the decree. What about property? Our apartment is in my name. I bought it before we got married. Then it's separate property. He'd have no claim to it. Any assets acquired during the marriage would be split equitably. But if you're talking about your apartment, your car, your personal savings from before the marriage, those stay yours. And if he agreed to everything, just signed and walked away, then it would be clean. Relatively painless, legally speaking. Rachel, are you really asking hypothetically here? Rachel watched the steam rise from her latte. I'm asking what my options are. That's all. Your options are that you have a lot of power if you want to end this. Especially if you can get him to agree to terms without a fight. But Rachel, are you sure? Marriage counseling might be a better first step. I'm past counseling, Sarah. I just needed to know the logistics. After she hung up, Rachel sat in the cafe for another hour, watching people come and go, thinking about the trajectory of her life. When she finally drove home, it was mid-morning. Tyler was awake, dressed in jeans and a button-down shirt, working on his laptop at the dining table. Hey, he said, not looking up. You left early. Couldn't sleep. Went for coffee. Listen, Rachel. About last night. I know I didn't handle that well. I was tired, stressed. I shouldn't have snapped at you. It's fine. It's not fine. Your parents are in a terrible situation. I want to help. I really do. I made some calls this morning. I have a buddy who works in real estate, and he said there are some subsidized housing programs for seniors in financial crisis. I got you the contact information, and I talked to my boss about maybe getting a bonus advanced, so I could contribute more toward getting them into a place. I'm trying here, Rachel. I want to do the right thing. Rachel sat down across from him. That's generous of you, Tyler. He finally looked up, relief crossing his face. Yeah? You mean that? I do. It's very generous that you're willing to spend your bonus money and make phone calls to help my parents avoid living on the street. His relief faltered at her tone. Rachel, what do you want me to say? That I'm thrilled about the possibility of your parents moving in, because I'm not, and I'm not going to pretend I am, but I'm trying to find a middle ground here. Right, a middle ground, where they get subsidized housing and you get to keep your comfortable life undisturbed. You're being unfair. Am I? Tell me, Tyler. If this was your family, would you be making phone calls and looking up subsidized housing? Or would you be offering them our guest room without a second thought? His jaw tightened. That's a hypothetical that's not fair to answer. It's not hypothetical. It's a simple question. If your mom and dad lost everything, would you turn them away? Tyler stood up, closing his laptop with more force than necessary. My parents wouldn't get into this situation in the first place. They're more responsible than that. The words hung in the air, ugly and revealing. Rachel felt something final click into place inside her chest. You think my parents are irresponsible? For being victims of fraud? I think your dad should have been more careful before investing their entire life savings with some random advisor. I think any financial consultant worth their salt would tell you to diversify, to never put all your eggs in one basket. So yeah, I think he made a really stupid decision, and now everyone else has to deal with the consequences. Rachel stood up slowly. Get out. What? Get out of this apartment. Right now. Rachel, you're overreacting. I'm just being honest. You're being cruel, you're being selfish. And I'm done. I'm done with this conversation. And I'm done with this marriage. Get out of my apartment. Tyler stared at her, his face going red. Your apartment? We live here together. No, we don't. This is my apartment. My name on the lease. My furniture. My home. And I'm telling you to leave. You can't just kick me out because I won't let your parents move in. That's insane. Rachel walked to the bedroom and grabbed the folder from her bag. She came back and threw it on the table between them. Inside were printouts of his text messages with Jessica. She had printed them at the cafe, pages and pages of conversations. I can kick you out because you're emotionally cheating on me, because you've been planning your exit from this marriage for weeks, while pretending everything is fine, because when I needed you to show me that you loved me, that our marriage meant something, you showed me the opposite. Tyler's face went white as he flipped through the pages. You went through my phone? That's a massive invasion of privacy, Rachel. And you've been building a relationship with another woman while telling me I'm paranoid. So I guess we're both guilty of something. But here's the difference. Tyler, I'm not going to pretend anymore. I see exactly who you are now. And I want you gone. We need to talk about this rationally. There's nothing to talk about. You've been pulling away from me for months. You refused to help my family when they needed it most. You called my father irresponsible and stupid. You've been emotionally intimate with Jessica, questioning our marriage, planning your escape. What exactly is there left to discuss? Tyler sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. Okay, yes, I've been confused lately. Yes, Jessica and I have gotten close. But we haven't done anything physical, Rachel. I haven't cheated on you. You've done everything but. You've shared things with her that you should have been sharing with me. You've questioned our entire relationship with her instead of with me. You've checked out of this marriage in every way that matters. So what? You're just giving up? You're not even going to try to work on this? Rachel laughed, a bitter sound. I'm giving up? Tyler, you gave up months ago. You just didn't have the courage to tell me. Well, now I'm telling you, it's over. I want a divorce. The word seemed to hit him like a physical blow. Rachel, wait. Let's not make rash decisions. We've been together 6 years. You can't throw that away over one fight. This isn't one fight. This is me finally seeing the truth. You don't love me the way I deserve to be loved. You don't have my back when things get hard. You think about yourself first, always. And I'm not going to spend the next 30 years wondering if you're really committed or just comfortable. What about your parents? Tyler said suddenly. If we split up, who's going to help them? You certainly can't afford to on your own. It was a low blow, clearly meant to make her reconsider, to remind her of her financial vulnerability. And it would have worked if Tyler knew the truth. But he didn't. Rachel smiled coldly. I'll figure it out. I always do. Now get out of my apartment, Tyler. Today, I want you gone by tonight. I need more time than that. Where am I supposed to go? Maybe Jessica has a spare room. You two seem to have gotten very close. I'm sure she'd be happy to help you out. Tyler stood up, his face a mixture of anger and desperation. You're making a huge mistake, Rachel. You're emotional. You're not thinking clearly. Once you calm down, you're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. Now leave. Or I'll call the police and tell them you're refusing to leave my property. Tyler stared at her for a long moment, then grabbed his laptop and his phone. Fine. I'll get my stuff and go. But this conversation isn't over, Rachel. When you come to your senses, we'll talk like adults. This conversation is over, and so is our marriage. He stormed into the bedroom and started throwing clothes into a suitcase. Rachel stood in the living room, her heart pounding but her resolve solid. After 20 minutes, Tyler emerged with 2 suitcases and his work bag. I'll be back for the rest of my things later this week. Text me when you're coming. I'll make sure I'm not here. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, then shook his head and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Rachel stood alone in the suddenly quiet apartment. She walked to the couch and sat down, the adrenaline beginning to fade, leaving her shaky and exhausted. But underneath the exhaustion was something else. Relief, clarity. She pulled out her phone and called Sarah back. Sarah, it's Rachel again. Not hypothetical anymore. I need you to file divorce papers. What Rachel didn't know was that Tyler, sitting in his car in the parking lot, was already texting Jessica. It happened. Rachel kicked me out. I don't know where I'm going to stay. And Jessica was already responding. Come to my place. We'll figure this out together. The story Rachel had told herself about who Tyler was, who she had married, was unraveling completely. But one more revelation was coming, one that would show Tyler exactly what he had walked away from. And Rachel was going to enjoy every second of it. 3 days later, Tyler agreed to meet Rachel at a coffee shop to discuss the logistics of their separation. He looked tired, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled. Rachel, by contrast, felt more clear-headed than she had in months. They sat across from each other in a corner booth, 2 lattes between them, that neither was drinking. I've had time to think, Tyler started. And you're right. I haven't been fully present in our marriage. I've been confused and I handled everything wrong. But Rachel, 6 years together has to count for something. Maybe we could try counseling. Maybe we could take a break instead of jumping straight to divorce. Rachel shook her head. Tyler, this isn't about one mistake or one bad week. This is about fundamental incompatibility. When I needed you, you weren't there. And that's not going to change. You ambushed me with an impossible situation, and then judged me for not reacting the way you wanted. That's not fair. Actually, it is fair. Because here's something I didn't tell you. Rachel leaned forward. My parents aren't in financial trouble. They never lost any money. They're not being foreclosed on. They're on vacation in Arizona right now having a wonderful time. Tyler's face went blank. What? I made it up. The whole thing. The investment scam. The financial ruin. All of it. It was a test. A test? His voice rose. You lied to me to test me? I needed to know if you'd be there for me when things got hard. If you'd support my family, support me when it really mattered. And you failed, Tyler. Spectacularly. That's psychotic, Rachel. You can't test people like that. You can't lie about something that serious just to see how I'll react. I can, and I did. And I learned everything I needed to know. You were willing to let my parents struggle. You called my father stupid and irresponsible. You immediately started calculating the minimum you could do to help. You thought about your comfort, your savings, your space. Never once did you say, of course they can stay here, we'll figure it out together. Not once. Tyler's face was red. Because it's not realistic. You can't expect me to just upend my entire life because you want to play savior to your parents. I expected you to act like a husband, like a partner, like someone who loves me enough to make sacrifices when necessary. Rachel paused. But you showed me who you really are. And then I read your messages with Jessica, where you admitted you've been thinking about leaving me for weeks. So this test just accelerated the inevitable. So this is all because I wouldn't let your parents move in for a situation that wasn't even real. You're destroying our marriage over a lie? No, Tyler. I'm ending our marriage because your response to that lie showed me the truth about you. And because you've been emotionally involved with another woman. And because when I really look at the last 6 months, I see someone who's been checked out, going through the motions, staying because it's convenient but not because you actually want to be here. Tyler sat back, his jaw tight. Fine. You want a divorce? You'll get a divorce. But don't expect me to make this easy. We'll split everything 50-50. This apartment, the furniture, the savings accounts, all of it. Rachel smiled. A cold expression that didn't reach her eyes. Actually, we won't. The apartment is in my name, purchased before we got married. It's separate property. Most of the furniture is mine. And my savings account from before our marriage is also separate. According to Colorado law, you're entitled to half of any assets we acquired during the marriage, which is basically your car and your 401k, both of which you're welcome to keep. I don't want anything from you. You're kidding. I'm not. My attorney already drew up the papers. All you have to do is sign them. No alimony, no asset division. Clean break. You walk away with everything you brought into this marriage, and I keep what's mine. Why would you give me such an easy out? Because I want you gone, Tyler. Completely and permanently. I don't want to fight with you for months over who gets the couch. I don't want a messy divorce. I just want you out of my life as quickly as possible. She slid a folder across the table. Sign these, and in 3 months, we'll both be free. Tyler opened the folder, scanning the documents. This seems almost too easy. It is easy. That's the point. I'm making this as simple as possible because prolonging this serves no purpose. Do we have a deal? He looked at her for a long moment. If I sign these, I'm walking away with nothing. You're walking away with your freedom and your relationship with Jessica, which is apparently what you want anyway. So sign the papers, Tyler. After a long pause, he picked up the pen and signed. I hope you don't regret this, Rachel. The only thing I regret is not seeing who you were sooner, but better late than never. She took the folder back, standing up. Goodbye, Tyler. I hope you and Jessica are very happy together. She walked out of the coffee shop without looking back, leaving Tyler sitting alone with his untouched latte and his thoughts. The next phase of Rachel's life was about to begin. But first, she had one more conversation to have. One more truth to reveal that would make everything that had happened crystallize into sharp, undeniable clarity. 2 weeks after Tyler signed the divorce papers, Rachel met with her parents at their home. They had returned from their vacation tanned and relaxed, full of stories about hiking and resort food. Rachel had told them she needed to discuss something important. They sat in the living room, her mother Linda on the floral couch, her father Robert in his favorite recliner. Rachel took a deep breath. So, I have some news. Tyler and I are getting divorced. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, honey, what happened? Rachel explained the whole story, the inheritance from Uncle George, the test she had created, Tyler's response, the messages with Jessica, the confrontation, and finally the divorce papers. Her parents listened in stunned silence. When she finished, her father spoke first. $24 million? George left you that much? Plus properties. It's a lot, Dad. Life-changing amounts of money. Her mother was still processing. And you told Tyler we were broke? That we needed to live with you. I needed to know if he'd be there for me when things got difficult. And he wasn't. He showed me exactly where his priorities were, and they weren't with me or with our marriage. Robert leaned forward, his expression serious. Rachel, sweetheart, I understand why you did what you did. But using us as part of a test without telling us feels a little manipulative. I know, Dad. I'm sorry. But I couldn't tell you beforehand because I needed Tyler's reaction to feel real. If I had been in actual contact with you during that conversation, He might have sensed something was off. Linda reached over and took Rachel's hand. I'm not upset about the test, honey. I'm upset that Tyler showed you such a cold side of himself. We always liked him, but if that's how he would have treated us in a real crisis, then you're better off without him. That's what I thought too, Mom. And honestly, Uncle George's inheritance gave me the freedom to see things clearly. If I hadn't had that financial security, I might have talked myself into staying, into believing Tyler's excuses, because leaving would have been scary and uncertain. But now I have options. I have security. I can build the life I actually want. What are you going to do with all that money? Her father asked. Rachel smiled. Well, first, I'm giving you both a gift. I'm buying you a new house. Something nicer than this one, something you can retire in comfortably. And I'm setting up a trust fund that will cover your expenses for the rest of your lives. You're never going to have to worry about money again. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Rachel, that's too much. We can't accept that. Yes, you can, and you will. Uncle George gave this to me, and I want to share it with the people I love. You've supported me my entire life. You paid for my college, you helped me when I was starting out, and broke. Now it's my turn to help you. Robert's voice was thick with emotion. That's incredibly generous, sweetheart. We don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll let me do this for you. Rachel squeezed her mother's hand. And there's more. I'm opening a bookstore. I've always wanted to run one. And now I can. I'm buying a space downtown. And I'm going to create the kind of bookstore I always wished existed. Cozy, community-focused, with a coffee shop and reading areas and author events. Something that matters beyond just making money. Linda wiped her eyes. That sounds perfect for you, honey. You always did love books more than anything. I did. I do. And now I get to build my life around that love instead of around a marketing career I never really cared about and a marriage that was falling apart. Rachel felt lighter than she had in years. Uncle George gave me more than money. He gave me the chance to see the truth and the freedom to act on it. I'm grateful for that, even if the truth was painful. Her father nodded slowly. George always was a wise man. He probably knew exactly what he was doing when he left everything to you. He wanted you to have choices, to have power over your own life. I think you're right, Dad. They talked for another hour about practical details, the house Rachel would buy for them, the trust fund, the bookstore plans. When Rachel finally left, driving back to her apartment in the early evening, she felt a profound sense of peace. Her marriage was over, but her life was just beginning. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Tyler had moved in with Jessica almost immediately after their separation, confirming everything Rachel had suspected about their relationship. She heard through mutual friends that they were happy together, or at least appeared to be. Rachel didn't care. That chapter of her life was closed, and she had no interest in reopening it. She had spent the months since the split putting her new life in place. She bought her parents a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet Denver neighborhood, with a yard and a view of the mountains. She set up the trust fund with Sarah's help, ensuring they'd never have financial worries again. She found a perfect space for her bookstore in a historic building downtown, and she spent weeks designing the layout, choosing furniture, selecting the initial inventory of books. The grand opening was scheduled for a Saturday in early autumn. Rachel stood in the store the night before, looking around at what she had created. The exposed brick walls were lined with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Cozy reading nooks with overstuffed chairs were scattered throughout. The coffee bar in the corner smelled of fresh espresso and cinnamon. String lights hung from the ceiling, giving the whole space a warm, magical glow. It's perfect, Sarah said, coming up beside her with 2 glasses of champagne. Rachel, this is absolutely perfect. It is, isn't it? Rachel took a glass, clinking it against Sarah's. A year ago, I was in a dying marriage, working a job I hated, feeling stuck. Now look at me. I own a bookstore. My parents are taken care of. I'm free. Tyler's an idiot for letting you go. Tyler did me a favor. He showed me who he was before we had kids, Before we bought a house together, before our lives got even more entangled, Uncle George's timing was perfect, and Tyler's failure was exactly what I needed to see. Sarah sipped her champagne. Have you heard from him at all? Not since the divorce was finalized. I saw on social media that he and Jessica got engaged last month. I'm happy for them, honestly. They're better suited for each other than Tyler and I ever were. You're remarkably zen about all this. Rachel smiled. I'm free, Sarah. I'm financially secure. I'm doing work I love. I'm surrounded by people who actually care about me. Why would I waste energy being bitter? Tyler made his choice. I made mine, and we both got what we wanted. The next morning, the bookstore opened to a crowd of curious neighbors and book lovers. Rachel spent the day recommending titles, making coffee, chatting with customers about their favorite authors. Her parents came and stayed all day, her mother crying happy tears every time she looked at the store. My daughter, the business owner, she kept saying to anyone who would listen. As the sun began to set, and the crowd thinned, Rachel stood behind the counter, looking out at her store, her creation, her new life. A customer approached with a stack of books, and as Rachel rang them up, she felt a completeness she had never experienced in her marriage. This was hers. This success, this happiness, this peace, all of it was hers, built on her own terms, with her own resources, free from anyone who would hold her back or make her small. That evening, after closing, Rachel sat in one of the reading nooks with a cup of tea and a book she had been meaning to read. The store was quiet, the lights dim, the world outside darkening into night. She thought about Tyler, briefly, wondering if he ever regretted his choices. Probably not. He had Jessica, he had his job, he had the life he wanted, and that was fine. Rachel had the life she wanted too. She had learned the most valuable lesson Uncle George could have taught her. That financial freedom was meaningless without emotional freedom. And that being alone was infinitely better than being with someone who didn't truly see you, value you, choose you every single day. She opened her book and began to read, the only sound in the store the quiet turning of pages and the distant hum of the city outside. This was her life now. This peace, this purpose, and it was worth more than any amount of money Tyler could have offered. More than any version of love that required her to make herself smaller or quieter, or less demanding. She was free. And she was exactly where she was meant to be. 6 months after the bookstore opened, Rachel was restocking the fiction section when Sarah burst through the door, her face flushed with excitement. You are not going to believe what I just heard, Sarah said, slightly out of breath. Rachel looked up from the stack of new releases she was shelving. What's going on? Tyler and Jessica broke up. Nasty breakup, according to my friend who works at their firm. Apparently, Jessica's parents had some kind of financial emergency, needed help, and Tyler refused. Sound familiar? Rachel felt a strange twist in her stomach, not satisfaction exactly, but a kind of cosmic justice. He did the same thing to her that he did to me? Exactly the same thing, according to the story. Jessica's dad had medical bills, needed surgery, and they were asking if Jessica and Tyler could help financially, or let the parents stay with them temporarily. Tyler said no, caused a huge fight, and Jessica dumped him. She told people at work that he was selfish, and that she finally saw his true colors. Rachel set down the books she was holding. Wow! There's more. Apparently, Tyler's been asking mutual friends about you, wanting to know how you're doing, if you're seeing anyone, if you ever mention him. Seriously, I think the reality of who he walked away from is finally sinking in. He's alone now Jessica's gone, and from what I hear he's pretty miserable. Rachel walked to the coffee bar and poured herself a cup. I almost feel bad for him. Almost. Don't. He made his choices. He showed you and Jessica both exactly who he is when things get difficult. Some people never learn. Sarah followed her to the counter. But the universe has a funny way of coming full circle, doesn't it? It really does. Rachel sipped her coffee, looking around her store. You know what the ironic part is? If Tyler had just been supportive during my test. If he had shown me that he'd be there when things got hard, he'd be sharing this life with me right now. The money, the bookstore, all of it, he'd be set for life. Instead, he chose his comfort in the moment and lost everything in the long run. Karma's real, Rachel. Maybe it is. Later that week, Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When she opened it, she realized it was Tyler. Rachel, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been thinking about everything that happened between us. I made mistakes, big mistakes. I was selfish and I didn't see what I had until I lost it. Any chance we could meet for coffee? I'd really like to talk. Rachel stared at the message for a long moment. Part of her was curious about what Tyler would say, how he would explain himself now that he had experienced the same rejection he had given her. But a larger part of her knew that conversation would serve no purpose. That chapter was closed. There was no going back, no reconciliation that would make sense. She typed a response. Tyler, I appreciate you reaching out, but I don't think meeting would be productive for either of us. We both moved on. I hope you learned something from what happened with Jessica, and I hope you find happiness. But my life is full now, and it doesn't include room for revisiting the past. Take care of yourself. She hit send and immediately blocked the number. There would be no more communication, no more opportunities for Tyler to try to worm his way back into her life. She had worked too hard to build this new existence to let old ghosts disrupt it. That evening, Rachel hosted a book club meeting at the store. 15 women gathered in the reading area, discussing the month's selection over wine and cheese. They laughed, they debated, they shared their interpretations and their personal connections to the story. Rachel watched them from behind the counter, feeling a swell of gratitude for this community she had built. These connections that had nothing to do with her past and everything to do with her present. After everyone left and Rachel was locking up for the night, her mother called. Hi, sweetheart. Just wanted to check in. How was your day? It was good, Mom. Really good. Book club tonight was fantastic. I'm so proud of you, Rachel. You've built such a beautiful life for yourself. Thanks, Mom. I'm proud of me too. Rachel stepped out onto the sidewalk, locking the door behind her. Hey, can I ask you something? Do you think I was wrong to test Tyler the way I did? To use you and Dad as part of that test? Her mother was quiet for a moment. I think you did what you needed to do to see the truth. Was it unconventional? Yes. But it worked. It showed you exactly who Tyler was when the stakes were high. And honey, better to know that truth after 4 years than after 20 years and 2 kids. That's what I keep telling myself. You made the right call, sweetheart. And look at you now. You're happy, you're successful, you're surrounded by people who love you. Tyler's the one who lost out, not you. Rachel smiled, walking toward her car in the cool Denver night. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Sleep well. As Rachel drove home, she thought about Uncle George, the uncle she had barely known, but who had given her everything. She wondered if he had known, somehow, that her marriage was fragile, that giving her financial independence at that exact moment would be the catalyst she needed to see clearly and act decisively. Maybe he had, or maybe it was just extraordinarily lucky timing. Either way, she was grateful. She pulled into her parking space at the apartment complex. The same apartment she had shared with Tyler, but that was now entirely hers. Redecorated and reimagined as a space that reflected only her taste, her personality, her life. She walked up the stairs, unlocked her door, and stepped into the quiet sanctuary of her home. No one was there to criticize her, to question her decisions, to make her feel small, or demanding, or paranoid. It was just her, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Rachel changed into comfortable clothes, poured herself a glass of wine, and settled onto her couch with the book she was currently reading. As she opened to her bookmarked page, she thought about the message she would have sent to herself a year ago, when she was sitting in that lawyer's office learning about the inheritance and making the decision to test her marriage. She would have said, "Trust yourself. You're right to have doubts. You're right to want clarity, and when you get that clarity, when you see the truth, don't be afraid to act on it. Don't settle for less than you deserve, because leaving feels scary. Don't stay in a marriage that makes you small because being alone feels uncertain. You are strong enough, smart enough, capable enough to build a life on your own terms, and that life will be more beautiful than anything you're settling for now. Rachel sipped her wine and began to read, the words on the page pulling her into another world, another story. But even as she read, part of her mind was already thinking about tomorrow, the store opening, the customers she would meet, the books she would recommend, the life she was building one day at a time. A life that was entirely her own, free from compromise, free from doubt, free from anyone who didn't see her worth. The inheritance from Uncle George had given her financial freedom. The test with Tyler had given her emotional freedom. And the combination of those two things had given her something even more valuable, the absolute certainty that she could trust herself, that her instincts were right, that she deserved a life full of joy and purpose and authentic connection. She was alone, yes, but she wasn't lonely. She was free, and that freedom was worth more than any marriage built on convenience, more than any relationship where love came with conditions and limits. Rachel Morrison had learned the hardest and most important lesson of her life, that being truly seen and truly valued by someone was the only thing that mattered, and that if she couldn't have that, she was better off alone. As the night deepened and the city outside her window grew quiet, Rachel finished her chapter and closed her book. She rinsed her wineglass, turned off the lights, and went to bed in the apartment that was hers, in the life that was hers, with a future that stretched ahead bright and undefined and full of possibility. Tyler had made his choice, Jessica had made hers, and Rachel had made hers too. She chose herself, and that choice had made all the difference. Every story carries within it an echo of our shared humanity. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone special. Leave us a comment about what you felt, and subscribe to join us for more soul-reaching stories. Because every life tells a story that deserves to be heard. See you next time.